Hello, everyone. Good to see you. Oh man, it's so great to be back. BJ, how are things looking online? Okay, maybe. Well, we'll press on. I'm Father Josh Stevens, the rector here. I've been on sabbatical for about 3 months and a week. And so it's really great to be back this Sunday and looking forward to just seeing everybody and this incredible community here. And I'll tell you a little bit about the summer. Um, but yeah, very grateful for the time away. So thank you guys for having the space for that here at St. John. So let me just jump in. I'm going to share some pictures with you because the first service was plenty long, and we'll need to get over there in a few minutes for the second one. So let's see, where to begin? Yes. So I just want to share some of the stories and the experiences of the sabbatical with you. I began the time down in Charleston at Mempkin Abbey, where I went on a retreat for a long weekend. And got to hang out with the monks down there and just set the rhythm for the sabbatical. It ended up being such a gift being down there. It's a Cistercian order Trappist related to like the one in Gethsemane in Kentucky that you've probably heard of with Thomas Merton. And they pray a bunch, and I was able to jump in on most of those offices and have a really nice time just in silence. Like I left my phone in the car, just read and journaled and went to prayer. And that, again, it proved to be a really nice way to set the rhythm for the time away. This is the retreat center that they have with the chapel down there. Beautiful property just for walking and exploring. This stuff is all made out of fallen oak trees. That's carved, Stations of the Cross. So I barely got in on the retreat, and they were full, and then they were like, "Oh, we have an opening," and I'm so glad that it worked out because it really it set the rhythms for this whole experience being a spiritual one, and not simply a vacation kind of thing. And then in terms of traveling, I came back from Mempkin Abbey on like May 4th, I think it was. And then I had a little bit of time to get organized, and I left on May 15th. So this was pretty wild as the summer went on. It was like I haven't been home since May 15th. And I was very ready to be home by the end of it. The first stop, though, was at my niece Abby was graduating from high school at St. Andrew's Swanee boarding school. So she's the one in the middle. And so this is my two kids up top, and then my nieces and nephews, my sister's kids, and my brother John's daughter, Abby, who some of you got to know. She lived with us for a few years. So she finished high school, and so we went there and we celebrated. And then my next stop was in Minneapolis. Yeah, so I visited Betsy Tibbs, a parishioner here. I really wanted to drive north, and once I realized that I was going to go through Minneapolis, I reached out to Betsy because I'd never driven across North Dakota before, so I thought this will be a neat way to go. Betsy's doing well. We had a really nice lunch. I got to see her house too and hear about her new church and everything, so she was really fun to see. This was in North Dakota. I was going like 85 miles an hour, and I was like, whew, there's some foxes there. And so nobody was around. It wasn't on an interstate, so I backed up and took a few pictures, which was pretty fun. And I slept the first or the second night, I think it was. This was like the national grasslands, the Grasslands National Prairie Land. It's a national park site, something like that, national grasslands. So I camped there at a place where I wasn't supposed to camp, and at a trailhead. There was a campground right there. I was like, I'm just going to stay out here. And I left real early. And that was the first view of the Rocky Mountains, which so many of you, these road trips are so special, and just that, I think it's a very American, very Canadian thing to just take to the road. And so it was really cool to see the Rockies all of a sudden pop up. I'll show you on the map. I know some of you are curious. I pulled up some maps here ahead of time. So my first stop was in Fernie, British Columbia, which is right here. So that's north of Montana. Like Glacier, I think Glacier and all that stuff is pretty close by. So that's the first stop was it was a 38-hour push from home. And I did it, I went to Swanee for the weekend, so that took off 5 hours. And then I did it in 2.5 days because I was eager to get out there. And then let's start back here. So I landed in Fernie, British Columbia. And on your right or the left side, that was where I camped I arrived on a Tuesday night, and I didn't drive again until Sunday morning, and just biked to the grocery store, in the trails, just biked and biked and biked. It was really fun. This is the campsite. There is an abandoned bridge there, and you could it was about 5 miles down a forest road. And so you kind of got used to the bridge, and then it was really beautiful. I saw a moose the first morning and a bear, it was pretty lovely spot. The river was really cold. I could not get in it. I tried so many times, and it was freezing. This was one of the trails, one of the bike rides, just to give you a sense of the landscape and the view. Yeah, so beautiful. So that's probably there's a big ski resort there that's known for. That's probably those openings in the trees look like that. This was my next stop in Kimberley, British Columbia. And it was a neat little town. It kind of has a Garmisch vibe to it. I was able to have campfires at this point. Eventually, there's a fire ban in British Columbia as you get into the summer because they really struggle with wildfires up there. Yeah, so a big waterfall. I was just at a lake, and I was talking to this local guy who I could barely understand. He was very local, sort of like an Appalachian person from way up in the mountains. He was like that guy, and his name was Kerry. And he was telling me about this waterfall. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go try to find it right now. And he goes, well, can I hop in with you? And I was like, let's do it. So I drove 10 miles up this Forest Service road with this new friend I had met. And he, sure enough, showed me the waterfall. And then that's a western tanager. I did some birding along the way. And then this was on the trail system, a little elk on a mountain bike. This was a beautiful lake, the St. Mary's Lake, where I swam and met some people and had some really neat conversations with just some local people. That's the view as you ride up to the top. That was at about 6:30 a.m. I was about to get out of the van. I was very much could have been. He's a big fella. And then I had my water jug out, and they were just curious about it. And so it wouldn't hold water after that. And then I bought some bear spray. I decided to buy some bear spray. I didn't have it yet, but I decided to go for it and get some bear spray at that point. And then this is the spot. If you went to the 8:45 service, you heard the story. I'll tell it at 11 too, but this is where I camped in Nelson, British Columbia, which was a really pretty view. And I'll show you a map in a minute. So the town is just down there. Yeah, some of the signs got very specific. They were like, keep children close, bring bear spray. I was like, wow. Ugh. It seemed very real. This was a glacial area near there that I went to, which was pretty neat. Yep, there's the mountain lion that I got to spend about 5 minutes with. It was pretty wild. I came up and I was taking a break on this fire road, and I heard something, and it just scrambled up to the fire road, and we just looked at each other for 5 minutes. So I've got a video of it. You'll be the first to see the video. It's not really out there. I was on my bike, but my bike was on the ground, and I was just eating some stuff. And so I'll show you this video. The cat was very much thinking about me. So after a minute or two, I decided to take out my phone and do a video. And we just stared at each other the whole time for the video is 3.5 minutes long. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. So I'll fast forward it. And yeah, we just looked at each other, and I was just thinking about my bear spray. I was like, I'm pretty sure I can get to it before he can get to me, but maybe not. He was about 35 or 40 yards away. And then he finally, it's loading a little bit. He finally moved. So not a good time for it to freeze. And I got to see him walk across the road. That is a cougar. Yep, a cougar or a mountain lion. Yep, and it's a big one. He stretches out, and I think he was probably as heavy as I am. Yeah, he's big. Oh man, let's see here. It was very humbling. I'll just say it was like extremely humbling to see a predator like that, and that close, and to think I very much was aware that I was not like he could have just destroyed me if he wanted to. Yeah, his muscles are like incredible, and you'll get to see it here. Let me see. So yeah, he held that for like 5 minutes. That is a lion. Yeah. Yeah, I've always wanted to see one. Yeah. And I'm 40 years old. I'm good. Don't need to see another one. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was a beautiful, terrifying, awe-inspiring experience.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that'll get you praying.
That was a freaking cougar.
I was just breathing at that point. I was just like, so then he went up my trail, right? Yeah. So then I waited longer, and then I just sang and made a lot of noise, and I thought, well, I'm not going to see him again. If I encounter him again, he's going to be on top of me. So let's just make noise, and I didn't see him again. Yeah. So that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. It was in Castlegar. I'll show you the map in a minute. And then as I made my way across, I stopped at this hot spring. I don't know exactly how to say it, but the First Nations people, the Sicilies people, they're where we get Sasquatches from. They believe that they could appear as a spiritual experience. And so this was a hot spring that I got into. I was the only one in there, a bunch of people walking by looking at me. I was just like, hey, everybody. This is right next to a fancy hot spring resort on a big lake. So it's commercialized, but this was the source of it. Some of them are like that, and some of them are more natural. And then I went to this little town called Hope, British Columbia, where they have chainsaw drawings, statue sculptures. And it's known for being where they filmed Rambo: First Blood. I didn't take a picture of the chainsaw carving of Rambo with his gun. I just left that, but it's there. And I had a really nice bike ride. This was one of my favorite rides of the trip. This truck gave me a lift up to the top, and you needed every bit of that clearance. It was a 3,500 foot climb, and it was I was glad I didn't have to pedal it. And this was the trail, and this kind of shows you the trail, some of the stuff I was riding, because it made a turn, and then I'd have to ride down that rock face. And so it was very steep, very fun, very, very hard. Um, yeah. Yep, no guardrails. Occasionally there would be guardrails. Yeah. So I'll show you the map just because I know it's hard to follow. So from Fernie, I was going to go north towards Golden and like Banff, but they were getting snow in mid-May up there. Like I saw a little bit of snow falling in Fernie, and I checked the weather up there, and they got a lot of snow. So because I was riding up into the mountains, I was like, I don't want to have snowfall. So I stayed along the border and just went to Nelson and Castlegar and Hope and just made my way just right north of the border. First you're in the Rocky Mountains, and then you enter into the Okanagan. Same as in the U.S., basically, except there's one spot that was really unique that was called Osoyoos, where it was like just desert, like red rock desert. And it's the only spot in Canada that's very much desert, where there's like all the flora and fauna, the cacti. So that comes up somewhere at low elevation. It was really wild to all of a sudden be in the desert. Just this one huge valley. So then I went up to Vancouver and stayed with my wife's cousin for a little bit. And we went, I did this mountain biking camp up on this mountain in North Vancouver. At this point I was like feeling a little lonely. I was like, I'm going to go to a bike camp for adults. And so it was really fun, except it snowed and hailed and rained. So like in Vancouver, the weather was quite lovely. And then when we went up the gondola, literally this was snow and this was hail. I've never experienced anything like it. We were freezing and covered in mud, but it was a big fun weekend. Grouse Mountain. Yeah, it was on Grouse. Have you been to Grouse? Yeah, it's pretty well known. If you go to Vancouver, it's kind of a fun spot to go up. You can. Yeah, it was really hard, and slippery. Yeah, it was not ideal conditions, but you learned a lot because of that. So. And it was with some professionals, like really fun for me to learn from them. This is the view when it cleared up from Grouse Mountain. That's Vancouver down below, which is quite a city, It's really, people who like cities, it's really a great city. This was in Squamish, British Columbia, and you can see the view. Squamish is sea to sky, it's just mountains on the ocean. And this was actually a bike trail that we rode down on the granite. It was very, very scary, for me at least. And these are some of the people I met at the weekend up at Whistler. So I hung out with them for a little bit. And this guy, Chris, actually, it was raining, and we were in the rain all weekend at Grouse. And I said, well, I'm going to go up to Whistler. He goes, oh, he's from Salt Lake. And he was like, well, I'm spending the whole summer there, and we have a big house. Why don't you stay with us for while it's raining? I go, okay, great. So I ended up staying with him Monday night through Saturday. And he has like 2 teenagers and his wife, and they were all riding, and he like showed me the mountain. It ended up being a really nice connection. And then when we looped back around, I got in touch with him again to see him, and he actually had a really bad crash, and he was life flighted to Vancouver, broke some vertebrae. But it's not a paralysis situation, so he's really fortunate. It was like super close, so he had to be operated on. So I just was in touch with him, and he's still got some nerve, like he can't feel some things in a hand, but he's doing a lot better. He's the one, no, this was a coach from Brazil, and then Chris is the one in the flannel. Yeah, so we'll add him to our prayer list. He's doing great. He's just going to be recovering for a couple months. He was literally like life flighted from a bucket hanging from a helicopter out of the woods. So that's Whistler right there from the top of Whistler. Okay, and then we switch gears a little bit and get into some family time. But let me just pause for a second and say, for the summer, uh, it was really neat to have the time away. And I think that my decision to not take on any official programming or study, burden or anything like that, I feel like was really a good decision. It was very much, an adventure, time in creation, a lot of prayer, a lot of awe and wonder, just a lot of rest and fun, right? It was just a lot of fun. And I met on our last holy hike, some of you all did it, where we went up to the top of Big Glassy. There was a woman who came over from Franklin, who was a Methodist minister who worked at Duke Divinity School and coordinated lots of stuff, continuing ed and sabbaticals with like hundreds and thousands of Methodists over her career, pastors. And I told her what I was doing, and she was like, that is exactly what you should be doing. Like, too many people try to take on, some project where they end up just working on their time off. So, yeah, it was really great to have that time away, especially that month. That was a month where I was by myself. And that's really unique. I think I hit the limit of it. Like, I was tired of being by myself, which is, I didn't expect that would happen. But, especially as a parent, like having that time away, I think it was a situation where, distance makes the heart grow fonder. And I was missing you all, missing my wife and my kids. And they flew out about a month into it, and we picked things up together. And this was in Squamish. Some big trees out there. That's in Squamish. And then we went to Whistler together and rode for a few days. Wilder lost a tooth. Her first tooth. It was so much fun. And then we went down to Vancouver, and we had a nice family reunion with my wife's family, because she's got about 50 cousins out there. And we got to see them and see her aunt and uncles and stuff. And then we put the kids away. We sent them away with her parents, who were out there with us for a little bit. And Rosanna and I went to this place on Vancouver Island, which is called the Black Rock Inn. It's in, if I can say it right, it's in Ucluelet. I think is how you say it. It's near Tofino. You've probably heard of Tofino. So that's on the Pacific Ocean on Vancouver Island. I'd highly recommend it. It's very nice. So we got like 5 days there where we just like ate good food and had a really nice time exploring the Pacific side. And then some friends met up with us from here. These are friends that live just down Crab Creek Road, and the wife's an ER doc with Rosanna. And we stayed in Cumberland, British Columbia, and did some camping. And I'll show you the map here so you can get a sense of this. Yeah. So this is my family map. So we went over to Ucluelet, and then we went back up to Cumberland. We went over to Powell River on the Sunshine Coast. We went back to Vancouver Island. These were ferry rides. We drove north like 4 hours, and the northern part of Vancouver Island is deserted, like just logging, wilderness. And then we took a 10-hour ferry all the way up here to Bella Coola, which is as far north as I've been. You can see Alaska is right here. So it was about halfway up to Alaska. And the climate up there was very different. It was stunningly beautiful. Really cool experience. So this is on the ferry ride. This is either before or after Rosanna spent like 2 hours throwing up. I think it was maybe after. She recovered. But there was a few hours where the open sea got to her. So this is in Bella Coola, up in the Alpine. It's a huge waterfall. Like, there were just waterfalls everywhere, and there's some glacial stuff. It's pretty neat. We were looking for grizzlies and stuff, but we didn't see any, which is probably for the best, because I've since been listening to Animal Attack podcasts, and I didn't even realize this, but they get to be like 1,000 pounds. That is crazy. if a black bear can like open your car door if it wanted, right? Just tear it right off. I can't even imagine. So this is Alpine. Yeah. We drove up it was like 10 or 15 miles up this fire road. Did some hiking. So that's all Bella Coola. And then we stayed at this place. We drove this, if you look at the map again, it was a 10-hour drive from here all the way down to this red dot. And that was one of the neatest roads, crazy road. The family was a little nervous, but it was like this, the highway turned into a dirt road. You climbed like 5,000 feet, just switchbacks up from the Great Bear Rainforest to the high desert. The more like alpine or those sort of like you get out in Washington, right? The terrain was dry evergreen forests up top there. So then we looped around, and this place ended up being really fun because it's hard to find, like when you're trying to vacation with kids and it's so long, you can't push it too hard. So this was a little bit of luxury where we could relax. That was the view. We could swim in the lake. And yeah, that was, then after that we went back to Whistler and we had some more time together. Then I dropped my wife off in Vancouver and I had about 2 weeks with my girls by myself driving back, it was good. It ended up being pretty good. Yeah. I stopped in Bend, Oregon where my brother lives, and my sister was visiting, and two of her kids, and then my brother's kids. This guy was in the hospital when he was born 9 months ago for like 6 weeks. So he's looking great. And so we got a nice visit with them. These are all the cousins. So while you're out west, you try to make those stops. So his name's Elijah, and he had a rough start, but he's doing great. And then we camped for 3 days in Idaho together in this beautiful spot. I bought a dog hammock for between the seats. Yeah, that was pretty clever, right? So Wilder slept there, and then Arlo slept in the back on the platform with me. And this was kind of crazy. One day they were like, we want to climb that mountain, the one that's behind them. And I was like, yeah, go for it. And I didn't think they were going to get very far. But then sure enough, they made it all the way up to the top of the rock face. I had to get out my binoculars. And then I was officially scared. Yeah, let them do it by themselves. Yeah. Yep. Then I was like nervous. Yeah. Well, she wasn't there, so Daddy's rules. Yeah, they're up there. It's pretty crazy. But it meant a lot to them. And then we stopped and we got to visit some really dear friends that I don't get to see very often. One was in Denver, a seminary classmate, Boyd Evans. He was the priest up in Abingdon for about 10 years. And then he took this position in Denver. So I got to see Boyd. He's turning 60, and we got to have some fun together. That's Father Boyd, St. Andrews in Denver. Yeah, you all met Boyd at the first Holy Hikes retreat. Yeah. Yep. That was at Winter Park. We went up to Winter Park. And then we have another friend from medical school, Patrick. He's on the left there, and his wife, and they've got 4 kids, and that's his wife's brother. His wife's on the right, Sarah. So we hung out with them a lot in Norfolk. So it was really fun to see them. And then in Omaha, this is Rosanna's best friend from college. So they put us up for the night. So we went Denver to Omaha to Kentucky to home. And it was a big push home at that point. So we got to see them. They owned some coffee shops there, really neat family. And then this was Travis, the best man at my wedding from college. He lives just south of Cincinnati in Kentucky. And we hung out with them and his wife Lydia. And they've got 2 kids. That was really special. And then we made it home. That was it. Oh, thank you. We got home Tuesday night. Yeah, I was extremely ready to be home. Like, I've never been on a trip so long. I was ready to be home, ready to get back to things, ready to just sleep in my own bed. And yeah, so it was really wonderful. We got to get over for the 11 o'clock, but maybe we could have one question or anything that anybody curious about? Yep.
Were you able to, did you have time to go to the Teddy Roosevelt Museum in North Dakota?
Nope. I just drove through those high plains there. Yeah. It was really beautiful, but I didn't stop there. Yeah. So I didn't do too much, except on the way back we got to see a little more of like we drove through the Tetons and got to see a little bit more. But thank you all. I'll share another story in the sermon across the street, and looking forward to catching up with each of you. So thank you guys so much.